Hello, everyone, and welcome to February the 10th regular Town Council meeting in the town of Vegreville. I call this meeting to order at 7 o'clock. I'll be looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Barry makes the motion. Is there any additions or deletions from that agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Next up, I'll look for a motion to adopt the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Councillor Bullock makes the motion. All read the minutes. Any errors or omissions within the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Just to let everybody know that we're short two here tonight and nobody is joining us via the social media sites. First up, correspondence. We'll start with Director Saskia.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have here a letter from the public trustee for a request for tax penalty forgiveness. This is regarding tax roll 183300. The public trustee has been appointed as a trustee for the estate and financial affairs of, which has been redacted, under the Adult Guardianship and Trustee Act as evidenced by enclosed court order. We have accepted an offer to sell the property for $20,000 with a closing date of July 31st, 2025. This offer is unconditional, so the property is firm sold. We were not aware of the recent penalty of 15% when we accepted the offer. As of November 2024, taxes due were $16,857. However, with the current amount due of $19,386, the sale proceeds will not cover the closing costs. As a trustee, we have a fiduciary duty to make decisions that are in our client's best financial interest. In order to conserve their estate, our intention was to have the property taxes paid out of the sale proceeds. The public trustee is requesting that the 15% penalty be waived and outstanding taxes been maintained at $16,857 until the deal closes. This will allow taxes to be fully paid out for the sale proceeds on July 31st, 2025. We've been very cooperative with the town in managing this property since our appointment. This person is vulnerable, Albertan, and we're hoping you can help us support them financially. Should you have any questions or concern, feel free to call our office. Thank you, Cavish.
Okay, I'll take a motion to receive and file. Councillor Bullock makes the motion. Any comments? Go ahead, Councillor Bullock.
Director Saskia, just making sure that no administrative errors were made with any of the taxes.
Not with this one. This is there was no administrative error. So the 18,000 or 16,857 as of December 31st, any taxes that are unpaid, including all years and any transfers, are due for a 15% penalty. So that's where that 16,000 turned into 19,000. And then there is also, between now and the closing date of July 31st, 2025, will be the current year's tax assessment as well, and a penalty should they not pay by June 30th. So the request is actually three parts: to waive the 15% penalty from December, plus not levy taxes from now until July 31st, or a penalty if we were to maintain 16,857 until closing date.
Yeah, well.
Yeah. So at this 16,857, that's money to tear down a house and some other money that's been spent by the taxpayers of Vegreville.
Correct.
Go ahead, Councillor Bullock.
It sounds like we have a fiduciary duty to collect all of it too.
So I guess we should reach out to some other questions and concerns. I just don't understand. They sold the property knowing full well they couldn't sell, it wouldn't cover this year's property taxes this coming year, plus what was already owed.
Yeah, maybe they misread our tax notice. They have been the trustee for a period of time. I do believe they may have even gotten the May notice. I would have to double check when it went through. But the penalty alone on the $16,857 outstanding was $2,528.70. So that was a significant penalty. The tax levies on this property are approximately $800 annually. So The amount that will change between now and July 30th would be the $800 and then a 15% penalty if they don't pay that by the end of June.
So they can't cover it with the sales alone,
Correct.
because the real estate agent needs to get their commission out of the sale. And then, but we don't know what the rest of the estate or the client that they're managing has.
Yeah, and then in regards to what went through, like approximately $5,000 of costs relating to like the demolition of that property is what got transferred onto the title. And that was at the advice of the public trustee, said just put the amounts to the tax roll instead of paying the invoices as they went, because I think it was cash. They're waiting for the sale proceeds to cover that. So there was a portion of that that was related to the demolition of the property, and then the remainder of that was unpaid taxes from prior years.
Prior years.
Correct.
Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Your Worship. And it says here that the closing date is July 31st, so they entered into a closing date a month after another penalty comes on. So if the closing date was before June 30th, they'd be saving that second penalty of 15%.
And the closing date is 7 months from their sale document, basically. Because they sold it sometime between November and now.
So basically, from my perspective, they're asking the residents of the town to subsidize by not collecting taxes that's owed to the residents of this town. So I don't know.
Can we just verify right now that the outstanding bill with the penalty is $19,386,
And 68 cents, correct?
68 cents. And there will be another tax on June 30th. And they're not gonna be able to pay that one neither, plus the penalty that'll be added.
Which is 15% of the $800. So in June, we only penalized the current year taxes. In December, we penalized the entire account balance. Yeah, so that penalty will be much smaller.
Yeah. So yeah, that's not really gonna work for these people.
They will get some credit on the statement of adjustments, because the $800 that is owed for June 30th will be 50% owed by or not quite 50%. From August 1st until December the purchaser would be responsible for that. So they would get credit for that portion of the current year taxes. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not sure what we're supposed to do. I mean, he's asking us to forgive something that we never do, and he's asking us to give up another year's taxes. But we don't know what the client that he's representing has in his bank account.
Correct. And this property is up for tax notification as well, as of 2024. So that, I believe they would be up for tax sale this year as well.
Go ahead, Councillor Warbaugh.
So, unfortunately, I understand exactly what he's saying. There's, to me, no way we can not charge the new taxes anyways. I mean, they still exist. We can't exempt anyone else from it. We certainly can't exempt them. And I understand where the 15% is an additional issue. However, the problem is they're trying to conserve this person's estate. And I understand that. That's what they're trying to do, and they can make that ask. But at the end of the day, our taxpayers aren't responsible for making sure their estate stays higher. It was actually a trustee's responsibility to find out closing and all these items before they ever did the sale. So, I mean, we've had other times where I've really felt for somebody and wanted to do it, and we've had to say no because it wasn't administrative. So for me, if this isn't administrative, I can't say yes to it.
Okay, well, is there anybody here that feels they would like to go along with the request? Okay, well, I guess you'll take it, the answer back is no. I mean, they have a duty. I mean, to save the account of somebody else, I mean, they'll just have to look into that account and then come out and pay the bill. If I were them, I'd pay it as quickly as possible. I would change the closing date so that they could save more on taxes. Maybe this person is just not that good at what they do. There's public trustee representation. I mean, they are provided by the government of Alberta. Okay, well, then the answer will be no.
Well, they take fees too, of course.
Of course they do.
Right.
Okay, well, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next up, CAO Ling.
Thank you, Your Worship. Next up is a letter from the Village of Riley regarding the Regional Recreation Feasibility Study Steering Committee. Dear Mr. Mayor, Vegreville Council, and RRF Steering Committee, I would like to sincerely thank you for the kind invitation to join the Regional Recreation Steering Committee. The Village of Riley Council truly appreciates the opportunity to be considered for participation in such an important regional study. After careful consideration, I must respectfully decline the invitation due to existing commitments and time constraints. While I won't be able to participate directly, I remain supportive of the initiative and wish the team every success. Thank you again for thinking of the Village of Riley, and please do not hesitate to reach out in the future. Warm regards, Stephanie Dennis, Mayor.
Okay, I'll take a motion to receive and file. Councillor Curtis makes the motion. Any comments? I think the Village was Riley was one of the first ones to sign on, were they not, with our grant application?
That was the Village of Holden.
Oh, Holden, sorry.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's nice. Okay, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now, what we all came to see under business. Manager Newton.
Thank you, Your Worship. At the February 4th, 2025 Legislative Committee meeting, Administration brought forward the member request for decision for the Spring Municipal Leaders Caucus, lobbying the change to the Alberta Traffic Safety Act to add the definition of a bylaw enforcement officer to the definition of peace officer of the Traffic Safety Act. The member request for decision has been seconded by the Village of Alberta Beach. Due to the Alberta Solicitor General change, Level 2 community peace officers were removed from the Alberta Peace Officer Act, causing municipalities to revert their peace officer programs to include either peace officer level 1s or bylaw enforcement officers. In many cases, municipal enforcement agencies have been required to wait up to 6 weeks for processing of an appointment to be completed for an approved peace officer, or wait for the training to be completed if hired prior to receiving the peace officer training. Municipalities rely on bylaw enforcement officers to enforce municipal bylaws, and their power only given through the Alberta Municipal Government Act. Bylaws may be created to remove vehicles that are in contravention of a bylaw, for example, towing a vehicle, or send parking violations through the mail. The issues municipalities face, however, is that to remove the vehicle from a public street or private property and to issue tickets by mail falls under the Alberta Traffic Safety Act, Section 77(1) C and 160 sub 1, respectively. The Alberta Traffic Safety Act does not permit bylaw enforcement officers with the authority to access vehicle information or to tow a vehicle. Only a peace officer, as defined with the Traffic Safety Act, is authorized to do so. In most cases, municipalities like the town of Vegreville do not have the necessary resources to carry out these actions. My recommendation to you today, Council, is that the Town Council approve the submission to the Alberta Member Request for Decision Spring Municipal Caucus, Leaders Caucus, requesting that the Alberta Municipalities Board advocate for the Minister of Transportation and Economics Corridor to amend the Alberta Traffic Safety Act to include under the definition of peace officer as follows: a bylaw enforcement officer appointed under the Municipal Government Act for the purpose of Section 77 sub 1 sub C and 160 sub 1 of this Act.
Okay. Any discussion? Anybody want to make a motion on the recommendation? Councillor Barry makes the motion. Go ahead, Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for clarity, what is being asked is so that they would be able to enforce those two sections. It wouldn't be full peace officer power.
That's correct, Councillor Barry. It would just be to enforce those two sections of the Traffic Safety Act.
And that would give them the freedom of doing that work within the municipality.
That is correct.
It sounds like a good idea.
Okay. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, next up.
Thank you again, Your Worship. At the February 4th, 2025 Legislative Committee meeting, administration brought forward the member request for decision for the Spring Municipal Leaders Caucus to lobby the self-pay option for the Lac La Biche Training Academy to continue, also known as the Community Peace Officer Reduction Program, CPOIT. The member request for decision has been seconded by the town of Didsbury. In May of 2024, the Director of Law Enforcement advised Lac La Biche County's Training Academy that they will be no longer to be able to proceed with self-funded CPOIT students. In September of 2024, the Training Academy informed the Lac La Biche of the decision, which was based on non-compliance with the Peace Officer Policy Program Manual. It's also claiming that it is not a good practice, as it is perceived that they are catering and teaching things that only people currently employed in the field should know. A practice that has been in place since 2020, with 24 out of 26 students currently employed as community peace officers. Without the self-paying students, municipalities are burdened with hiring untrained candidates, funding their training through provincially recognized CPOIT programs, all while risking that the candidate does not complete or pass this training, starting the process again from the beginning. This causes strain on municipal recruitment abilities and potentially their budgets. The potential to hire a candidate who is provincially trained within the required field training provides municipalities with the opportunity to attract new candidates for their positions. Our recommendation today is that the Town Council approves submitting an Alberta Municipal's member request for decision at the 2025 Spring Municipal Leaders Caucus, advocating to the Director of Law Enforcement, Assistant Deputy Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services to reconsider the decision of not allowing students to self-fund for the Community Peace Officer Induction Program.
Okay, take a motion for the recommendation. Councillor Curtis makes the motion. Any comments? Go ahead, Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, this one seems just a little bit backwards to me, to make a municipality have to hire somebody who basically knows nothing and then pay to have them trained, so that eventually you have somebody that has the qualifications to do the job you hired them to do to start with. In most trades or lines of work, the individual comes to you with the qualifications, and you can sort between the different individuals with their qualifications and hire the best one. I don't quite understand why they're taking away the self-funding. It seems like an argument that doesn't really work just because they're being taught things that maybe they shouldn't know. Well, maybe more people should know what those things are. You know, I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me, so I definitely support this, lobbying for it to come back.
Why wouldn't someone pay to get this training, and then you could go and pick the best trainee that you want? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And this is just something that just recently started?
Yeah, I can't speak for the minister, Your Worship, but this was made known to the Training Academy during the last CPOIT class that was there, where we were able to get a candidate from, a self-funded officer. Back in mid-2000s, the Training Academy still allowed, also the Provincial Training Academy still allowed self-funded students with the possibility of being hired on a municipality after the fact. Most of the time, they make room for municipalities that have the desire to send somebody, so they'll do that first before they bring out the self-pay option, but they've canceled that prior to 2020. And in 2020, when the training academy was put in place, they were allowed to do that self-funding students up until late last year.
Well, there's lots of things governments do that just don't make sense. Okay, well, we have a motion for the recommendation. All those in favor? There we go. So I hope this gets on the, now, are we going to be supporting this at the spring caucus, or?
Yes, requests for decisions through Alberta Munis work a little bit different than resolutions, and I'll have to look into it, but I don't think it's as onerous as the resolutions where you have to stand up and speak to it.
Because we have Councillor Berry ready to go on these issues. If they need a spokesman. Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you very much. Speaking of Councillor Berry, let's go ahead with your councillor report.
Okay, thank you. February the 3rd, and we had council and MLA meeting, which I thought was quite informative. We hadn't had one for a while. On February the 4th, I'll just say it this way, VARC planning session and meeting. We're working towards changing the name so that it would be Vegreville Attraction Retention Committee instead of all the other aspects. So we've formed a small committee who are going to be, myself included, who will go through right now and look at a new mission and vision statement and some other aspects of it, and then that'll come back at our next meeting in March, and we'll discuss it further, make amendments, etc. And then at some point in time, we'll have a grand unveiling of our new selves with a new name. And we might look at it being a little bit more global than just professional healthcare workers, because we look at it as everybody that is, no matter what their position is, that are in a healthcare situation are essential in order to provide healthcare. So we are looking at just trying to see how we can bring the community more connected to the need for supporting healthcare in our area. Legislative meeting on the 4th, on the 7th. While I was already at another conference, I did take and go on to a Zoom meeting for the Vermilion River Watershed, a joint committee meeting and what we call technical advisory committee meeting. And we're still going through looking at the terms of reference and state of the watershed and determining where we fit in the Vermilion River watershed and what will be our direction into the future. And we're looking at just what avenues we can start approaching getting more funding for different projects. So we've thrown out a few ideas and we're going to brainstorm them again in a little while. And we also went through some of the studies that have been done in the watershed, which were quite interesting. We're still working towards getting the activity book that I've spoke of a few times, the activity book to go into schools for ages 5 and 9. So what we did is we agreed with the Vermilion River watershed, we have a small fund still available. So we're going to use that to hire an artist to get all of the artwork done for it. And while we're waiting for the potential of a grant to come through that would provide the finalization of the printing and distribution to get it all to all of the schools in our watershed area. So I think that they are in the process of hiring a new coordinator that will work on a full-time basis and would cover the Vermilion, the Sturgeon watersheds. While I was on February the 6th to 9th, I was invited by the Agricultural Society to attend their, what they call AAAS conference in Edmonton. And I'd really like to express my appreciation to the Vegreville Agricultural Society for inviting me to go along with them. I thought it was an extremely good conference, of course, related mainly to agriculture, but I did grow up in an agricultural community, and we now live in an agricultural community. So I actually did find most of the presentations to be very interesting. The keynote speakers were excellent. The bands that they had there in the evenings were very exciting and excellent, and a lot of it local talent as well. There was an underlining theme that I felt with the keynote speakers and a couple of the presentations that I did attend, at looking at how communities have become disconnected, how the people living in communities, particularly younger people, have become disconnected because we're in a what's in it for me society now. I grew up, and a lot of people grew up in communities and in families that the community was first, and the family volunteered into everything, and it was just an obligation. And this is the way they were putting it. We sort of, at one time, it was an obligation, particularly in a location like Alberta, where all the communities had nothing until they actually got together and built it themselves. A few generations later, we're now in the situation of what's in it for me. So when you try and encourage somebody to come, they're more connected to their phone, they're more connected to Netflix, they're more connected to everything. One of the examples was who waits for each episode of Yellowstone to come out. They just take and binge it straight through because they can just go over, click on to Paramount Plus, and watch all the episodes in one night if they wanted to. So it's not a wait until I get served, it's a I'm going out and getting it. And that has made volunteerism extremely difficult. It's made it very difficult for people to remain connected. And the real theme they had on there was in the agricultural area, the isolation and the high level of suicide, particularly in male farmers, ranchers. So they were trying to promote the ag societies as being one of the central areas of trying to make sure that all of the farming community remains connected so that they feel that they have an avenue to discuss things and not feel isolated, not feel so desperate in a sense that they would even consider suicide. So I thought that just that theme there alone was very interesting in the conference. And then today's workshop and tonight's regular council meeting. And that's where I'm at now.
Where was the conference at?
It was at the Cree Resort and Casino.
Oh, nice.
So despite the fact that we were at a casino, I was amazed at how little time any of the delegates spent in it. They had stuff going on every night. You didn't really need to have alone time. They had something going on from breakfast starting at 7 in the morning until 11, 12 at night with the hospitalities and that.
It's a good facility. Nice.
And it was a very good facility. But yes, we all did spend a little bit of time socializing.
You can do whatever you want. Councillor Curtis.
Thank you very much. For me, starting off February 3rd, we had our meeting with the MLA, Jackie Armstrong-Hymanuk, where we brought some concerns from Vegreville, stemming around, one of the points I brought up was mental health and supports in the town. So we want to get some advocacy out there, which, our council presentation earlier today was around that too. So we want to really push for the proper services in Vegreville. February 3rd had our tourism board meeting. Not too much to move on that, as you can expect. Tourism isn't huge in the winter here, so we're planning stuff for the summer. So we're getting our Canada Day event ready. as well as we talked about our lights at the Pisanka Park. So we had some new lights this year on the elk at the front of the park and on the caboose. And we did, the people who put them up did some better strapping and getting the lights on there, and there was less vandalism this year. Last year we had some people ripping stuff down, and that didn't happen, so that's a good news story. They look really good. Next up, we had a graphic design for our new T-shirt that'll be sold at the Vic. Mixed emotions on the design. The front is a nice circle with the Pisanka and Pisanka Park. The back's a little bit busy, so we're looking at maybe decluttering it a little bit to make it a little more appealing for some people. So more to come on that. And then we just talked about the spring info night and career fair that's coming up in March. Businesses in town. I think it was a pretty good turnout last year. So students from all over could come and look, and not just students, other people, looking for a new career or some jobs as well. And then the spring info nights where you can sign up for any of the clubs or organizations in town. And I think, Jameson, I had it up, but I don't have it now. It's March 19th.
Yeah, that's correct. Wednesday, March 19th.
March 19th. Awesome. And then Ledge meeting on the 4th. Our council presentation earlier, as I mentioned, and then tonight's council meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Councilor Warwa.
Thank you. Had mostly the same, just on the 3rd, the meeting with Emily Armstrong Hominiuk, and one of the things I would just say from there that was really clear to me is that we are still going to see a lot more problems on the immigration side. And we may have more advocacy going forward. And it's not just going to center around, our Ukrainian settlement here. Now, Councillor Lemko absolutely has been working really hard with the Vegreville Stands with Ukraine. And we did bring up some of those challenges because on the federal side, obviously we know that those QIT visas have ended and there hasn't been the bridge programs that sort of were announced originally that actually work for direction to PR. So we did discuss a little bit as far as how potentially they need to come through some of the provincial side. However, I think that from that, it was really clear that there still needs to be potentially that meeting that we did discuss before where we were trying to coordinate with meeting with the minister, because we still don't see a change to the rural stream, for example, that they have, and people are still using it in an unattended way from what we are seeing. I mean, the idea and I've gone through it again and again, and their premise behind it is supposed to be people that were currently here being able to helpfully be moved from more urban settings to rural settings. And what we're really seeing still is it being a situation of bringing people in without the LMIA process. So it still is not working properly. Some communities, in my understanding, have gone away from it. And then also the next problem that we're seeing on the provincial side to some of that is that they have a number of streams that are there, but they're not open. And now, of course, it's not that we're blaming only provincial, because then the stream into federal isn't working together. But the part that we did bring up a little bit to her is the discussion with the fact that some of the names and the descriptions don't have synergy between the federal and the provincial. And one of the primary being the implied status. We went over that quite a bit, and letting them know that on the Service Alberta side, that then we were still seeing people who were allowed to work federally by that status, and provincially, because the permits are expired, they were losing health care or ability to renew driver's licenses. I do think that it may warrant maybe a direct letter or joint letter potentially to the Minister of Service Alberta along with the Minister of Immigration, because I'm still not fully convinced that the two departments are recognizing where they would fall in. It just seems a little bit like the immigration side's going, here's our program, and they're not even seeing where Service Alberta would necessarily have a place within it. So I think there's a little bit more work to do on that, but appreciate meeting with MLA. Then on the 4th, I had the chamber meeting, and as Councillor Curtis mentioned, they're obviously working on the career fair. I think it might work really well that they're having it kind of float right into the evening registration, might keep people around a little bit more. And the only one thing I was gonna highlight about that is they also have some new vendors potentially coming in that they didn't have before. One that they had listed the other day was actually Nate. So that would be good. If they are able to get a pretty good number of vendors out there. They're looking at the traditional ones too, through Lakeland and some others as well. So Then I had the legislative meeting that day, and today had a few meetings. We had our land use, our council presentation, and tonight's council meeting. And the only other update I wanted to give you was at our previous council meeting, we had been you had tasked me with arranging of 2 meetings that was going to go up with some members and the library board and some members and chamber, and both meetings have been scheduled. So that's it.
So thank you for stepping in at the last ledge meeting when I was away as deputy mayor. I hope everybody behaved and things went okay.
It was okay.
Okay. Next up, Councillor Bullock.
Thank you, Mayor. Mine's a lot shorter. On the February 4th, the legislative committee meeting, and earlier on today, the council presentation, and tonight's council meeting. That is it.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So I don't know if anybody knows, but I have been away, mostly in airports, but I did see a bit of a beach. But before I left, I had a couple of interesting meetings with some potential industry people that I've talked to as many times. I also sat in with a meeting with CAO Lang, Director Saskew, on some negotiations were coming up shortly. And then on the 30th, Thursday, we had our recreation facility study committee sat down, and we're getting very close to a report that's going to be coming out fairly soon, I think. So that's always good. And yeah, and then today I too was on the land use committee with Councilor Wawa and tonight's meetings. So thank you all again for taking over while I was gone. I really appreciate that. I haven't seen looked back and seen the video yet, but hopefully everything went good. Is there any other business of council? I see at this time we have one closed session item, so I'll take a motion to go into closed session. Councilor Rawa makes the motion at 7:37. All those in favor? Carried.